Welcome to Massive Passive Cash Flow, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Hello, and welcome back to the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. This is Gary Wilson. We're glad to see you again. If you could please, if you haven't already done so, would you mind subscribing to the podcast? It's on 30 different channels, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, all your favorites. And while you're online doing that, go to the new website, globalinvestoragent.com. It's specifically for what we call investor agents. These are not traditional listed agents. These are certified investor agents who know how to identify, analyze, and negotiate all of our investment deals for us. I'm an investor too, right? We're in 27 states. I know who they are because I trained them personally. So these are not your traditional agents, guys. So definitely take advantage of it. And if you are an agent, I highly encourage you to go to that website and check it out for yourself because it's a great way to expand your business model. So anyways, without further ado, I want to introduce you to Tina Larsson. Hi, Tina. And thank you very much for taking your time to do this.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. And if you wouldn't mind, I know you're in one of my favorite places, the Big Apple, New York City. Would you mind giving people a bit of a background, how you got to where you are today, and what was your inspiration, what led you there, and then we can get into some examples and go into some details.
Sure. So thank you so much. So first of all, let's get the accents behind us. So I'm from Sweden, and I moved to New York City in 1994.
Okay.
At the time, I started working on Wall Street. I went back to school, started working on Wall Street. And just like you, Gary, I was analyzing data. But at the time, for the sole purpose of investing my clients' money in the stock market. My husband and I bought a co-op. And in New York City, co-op, there are condos, but co-op is more common. But it's a homeowners association. We bought an apartment in a co-op, and there was no inflation during the financial crisis. And we got the letter from our co-op board saying that they were increasing the maintenance by 5% again for the 10th year in a row. And that's when I said to my husband, listen, we got to do something about this. We got to run for the board. We got a group of neighbors together, and we took over the board. My husband is the board president, but what he did, or what the board decided, was on using my analytical skills and see if we could find some cost savings so that we didn't have to increase maintenance again the next year. And I did what I know from finance. I got together benchmarks, meaning I went to neighboring buildings, pretended to be a buyer. I guess my real estate friends are not going to like me for that, but that's what I did. Collected some financial data, put together some data points. Then I made some phone calls, and the board agreed on this, of course. I was just on a finance committee. And we renegotiated some contracts, eliminated some that were not necessary, and we saved the building $340,000 in the first 3 years.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And when we were out networking for our finance business, and you know how much everybody wants to meet a financial advisor, right? They need another one. Instead of introducing myself as a financial advisor, I introduced myself with, hi, I'm Tina Larsson, and I helped my co-op board save $340,000. And almost everyone said, can I introduce you to my co-op board? And that's when we formed our company. And it's called the Folson Group. I'm the co-founder and owner.
Okay.
And basically what we do, we are business consultants. We help co-op and condo boards and multifamily property owners increase their property values by reducing their expenses. And we are, in addition to property managers, the property managers continue to do their work. We are just business consultants. And so that's how we started, and that's what we do.
Well, that's pretty awesome. It's you're when you, I have a saying, a dollar saved in expenses is just as good as a dollar earned in the profit column. And what you're doing is that absolutely, I mean, that's literally almost $10,000 a month. $340,000 in 3 years. That's well over $100,000 a year. And some buildings in New York City, they're not all 100-unit buildings. Some of them are 10 units and 12 units and 14 units. So this can really add up. But I wonder if we could clarify a few things for some of the listeners who are familiar with New York, like you and I are. What's some of the key characteristics in a co-op versus a traditional, condo association or HOA like people see out in the suburbs? Co-ops are kind of unique, and they're obviously more popular in New York City.
Yeah. So a co-op condo, outside of the city, it's basically a gated community. In Florida, there are a lot of HOAs, and they might call them condo. What they call them is just based on the, legal structure. Mm-hmm. But it's some kind of community living, whether in New York City, you live in an apartment building, or in Florida, you can live in an apartment building or in a gated community. Mm-hmm. But the common ground is that those are typically run by a property manager. So that's an outside property manager who has, in many cases, many buildings or many associations. So their time is very limited. They deal with all the admin, the execution of what the board decides on. But the board is it's a collection of it's a group of individuals who own in the building or the homeowners association. Mm-hmm. Who then volunteer their time. They get elected, so kind of like a government. They are on the board, but in many cases, they're not very knowledgeable about running a building. And in every case, they have a full-time job. They have children. They have a family. They have hobbies. They need to go golfing. They don't really have time to dedicate too much time into their duty as the governing body of the association. Yeah,
I agree. And neither are they typically experts in the area either. And that's what's so unique about what you're doing is you've discovered a niche in the marketplace, a necessary service where most co-ops or any ownership organization, it's actually the owners themselves. And they could be a teacher, a dentist, a pilot, and that's their specialty. Their specialty isn't, going out and doing the research and negotiating better contracts for services. And for everybody listening, this is a big deal. When you think about all that's involved here, you've got pest control, lawn control, snow removal, maintenance and repairs, interior cleaning, the hallway, the common areas, all that kind of stuff. And not to mention the tradespeople that have to maintain, say, the roof, working on the roof, replacing windows. I mean, so Tina, you could probably speak to this a lot better than I could, but if you could give an example, if you have a recent one, or maybe your very first one after the one with you and your husband, how did you actually land that very first deal where you worked with someone else, the contract where it wasn't your own property? I'm sure that was an exciting day, I'm guessing, huh?
It was a very exciting day. And it was our entire business is built through networking in various forms. And so it was a referral. And that was our first building. Now, what has happened over time is that we have a longer list of items to look at. So in the beginning, we had a limited list, and that list gets longer and longer. And also our solutions to resolving the various problems becomes longer and longer too. So let's say that 7 years ago, we had a list of 3 different items that we could use to reduce the energy use. So in a building, the energy use, not like a homeowners association where it's individual units, but in an apartment building, their energy is used for heating and electricity. And there are lots of savings. And as we know, we're all trying to stop using fossil fuels and reduce our carbon output. And that is really a very large expense in an apartment building, heating both the space as well as the water and the electricity. And that is the area that we most commonly start at. Insurance is a big item too. So every building needs an insurance.
Okay.
And those are typically very substantial, or those are a big cost, and very often they are not renegotiated.
Yeah.
So the property manager suggested this insurance broker 10 years ago, and then if it increases every single year and nobody reviews it, then we very often find huge savings on insurances. Very often by 50%.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible. Now on with utilities, water, obviously it's usually municipal and the rate is the rate, but with every apartment, every unit, everybody has, showers, tubs, toilet sinks. So just in a practical sense, if you have a plumber that's on, like a retainer, for example, to make sure that there's no leaks, that would keep those costs down. But what about electricity and natural gas? Are you able to also negotiate those rates?
We do not negotiate the rate, because anyone who understands the stock market knows that fixing your rate might work in your benefit or it might not. Right?
Yeah.
So we do not reduce how much they pay for electricity and heating or for the energy.
Gotcha.
The property manager typically does that on their behalf. We reduce how much they use. So we have a long list of various items that we can do to upgrade a building to use less energy, very often by as much as 50%. Again, so if you walk into any apartment building and you walk down to the basement or to the hallways, you'll notice that the lights are on 24/7.
Yeah.
The basement on average is used 10% of the time. So you can only imagine if you treated your basement in the same way that you treat your apartment, that when you leave your apartment, you turn the light off.
Right.
So the number one, install LEDs. Very often in New York, light fixtures are the original light fixtures from when the building was built in 1957 or something. And I'm saying that because there was a big building boom in the 50s and the 60s in New York City.
Yeah.
So putting those on LEDs, exchanging the light fixtures, putting them on LEDs and putting them on motion sensors is a tremendous savings.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
And that is one of the items that we use for every single building we go into.
Yeah. Okay. Now, as far as the location, or is most of your business inside the between, we used to say between the rivers, the Hudson and East River? Is that what about could you also do this for folks say over in like Jersey City and Hoboken and?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We market to New York City and the boroughs. For some reason, we have a lot of new clients, or we have a lot of clients right now who are located in Brooklyn. Why that is, we're not sure. But it seems like maybe board members in Brooklyn are more, I don't mean to generalize, but it seems like they want to make their buildings more energy efficient than maybe boards on the Upper East Side. So, so anywhere in the area, but we primarily market to New York. Can we do this for a condo in Miami? Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I did notice, I've been going to New York since I was a child because we have family there. And there's been such an improvement over the years in the boroughs, and particularly Bronx has been Bronx is completely different now than it was when I was a child. And Brooklyn is also, when I was there the last time, a lot of renovation, a lot of the all the row houses, the neighborhoods, just beautiful, the things that people were doing to them. So I'm not surprised to hear you say that about, Queens had already been, pretty well developed, a while back. And, you've got, of course, I think it was, we call it Manhattan City. It was over the river from Manhattan, but skyscrapers, but sort of.
Oh, Long Island. Is that Long Island City, maybe?
Long Island City, I'm sorry. Yeah. Sorry, Long Island City. And, sort of south of Queens and north of Brooklyn. But that whole area is just like the city just went over the rivers and kept growing. So when I was a kid, Jersey City, New Jersey was not anything like it is today. Now it's a big metropolis, giant buildings, and it's just amazing. So you mentioned something interesting. What you develop clearly can be used anywhere where people have basically group ownership, group homes, things like that, condos, communities, things like that. But Miami's a giant city. Miami is often referred to as the New York City of the South. San Francisco, Chicago, Los Angeles. So have you advertised or marketed in those areas too? I think you said you just really promote in New York City, but what about clients, investors, institutional investors that have buildings in other cities?
Yeah, no, we welcome them, but we have New York is a very large market, so we haven't promoted it anywhere else. Can we do what we do anywhere? Absolutely. And in many cases, we don't even have to visit the building. We just have to, or the association. We just need financial statements and invoices.
Okay.
And so, but the market in New York is huge. So we haven't seen a need for us to do that, but absolutely, it's on the radar. It will happen.
Yeah.
And with your show, who knows?
That's right. And we have listeners in I think 50 different countries now. So
wow, that's very impressive.
We get a lot of downloads right away. So what's interesting is I know some of the folks that I work with, are the agents on our team, or obviously in more than half of the states, and so we've got a lot of exposure out there. But I do believe people will be listening to this, and so I want to. So if people want to reach out to you, they can still take advantage of what you developed, I guess, and on a consulting basis. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
We have some free tools on our website that they can. So there's a free tools tab on our website, where we have a few different tools, and we keep on adding more tools that are available for anyone to download.
So we still got plenty of time here, but what is the website?
So the website is www.thefolsongroup.com, and that's with an N. It's not the prison, Folsom. It's Folson.
Okay.
And group.com.
Okay.
And we're also available on LinkedIn. We're also, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. And I'm very active on LinkedIn, and my LinkedIn profile is Tina Larsson. That's 1 R, 2 S's, L-I.
Okay.
Like LinkedIn.
Yeah. Okay. So all right. So LinkedIn, and on the back on the website, I'm sure there's a menu they can, or is the options readily available right on the homepage? Hi, Gary here. Just want to say thanks real quick for listening to the podcast. We really appreciate you doing that. And all I want to do is take a quick minute to introduce you to the Healing House Foundation. Okay, so if you're watching this on video, I'm going to let you see it. If you're on podcast, you're not going to be able to see it, but you can see it in the click on the show notes on globalinvestoragent.com, and you can see, well, that's the main website, globalinvestoragent.com. This is a great place for you to connect, not just with me, but with all the agents we have around the country, and check it out. But more importantly, if you click on the Healing House Foundation, okay, you can read all about it. And this is a 501(c), totally voluntary. Nobody here makes a dime. So all the proceeds, 100%, go to local needs in your area where you live, for people that need help, all walks of life. I mean, every one of us knows somebody that needs help. And this is our way to come back full circle in the world of real estate, where we make so much money. Let's help those who are in need. Sometimes they need a helping hand. Sometimes they need to be taught how to fish, and sometimes they just need to fish. Sometimes they need both. So this is a way for you to participate. Check it out. All kinds of stories. examples. It's very flexible in that we can earmark funds for a particular need that you have in your area, as long as it's related to the need of housing. That's all. It doesn't matter what the underlying circumstances are. We pray for healing for everybody. So, in any case, thanks for indulging me. Let's get back to the podcast.
Yes. So we do three different things. We have three different services. We have the cost sharing, the cost savings, where we work on ongoing operating costs and we share our client savings. If we can't find any savings, which has never happened to date, then there is no cost for hiring us. So basically a free review. Okay. We also do the same kind of contingency basis on projects. So these are the large projects like roof replacement, elevator replacement, facade repairs, window repairs, etc. So for those, and those are projects or repairs. For those, we also work on contingency. Mm-hmm. Or our third service is that we can also do the project management, where there are no proposals or services already, mm-hmm. and the board doesn't feel that their property manager has enough bandwidth or resources or time to mm-hmm. help them get bids. So they're starting from scratch, and they want us to help them come up with a solution for all of their various problems and all of their various wish list items. And then we will help them prioritize and find financing for those, or decide on how to finance those. Mm-hmm. And we provide different solutions, and we also help them get the incentives from the local utilities for implementing all of those different projects. Okay. And then we oversee the whole project from start to finish. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's actually quite a workload. So, but,
and that we have to do in person. That can only be in the New York area because.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
That part. Okay.
Yeah.
So what about timing? I know obviously right now in our economy, the cost of everything is going up: materials, labor, fuel cost, energy costs, which is going to translate to our utilities. So that's clearly people should be really paying attention. This is so timely. That's why I really wanted to do this podcast. But generally speaking, even in normal times, when's the best time for people to engage with you? Because I know real estate's always being bought and sold. The investors, we're buying, we're selling. So have you determined what's the optimal time for people to engage you in the services of reducing their costs?
It is today. Like any other investment. I mean, it's like any other investment. The best time to invest was 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. And I mean, we will help boards reduce their expenses right away. And if they wait for a year, then that is gonna be a lost cost, right? They're never gonna get that money back. So the earlier they start, or the quicker they start, the more savings they're going to be able to realize. And some of our projects, they happen overnight, and some of them take a very long time. We might get a new client today who just renewed their insurance a month ago, so we can't do anything for 11. When it comes to that particular item, we can still work on other items for that building. We might still be able to renegotiate their exterminating service or their elevator service contract, and reduce their energy use is a big one.
Yeah. It's interesting. I just was thinking, so anybody listening, I would say that, when you purchase a new property, this would be that's the ideal time to go and engage Tina. And let's say you're not in the business of buying properties anymore, but you're looking at maybe selling, and you haven't done this for buildings, I would definitely engage with Tina, because think about it, it's going to make your property more valuable. And the reason is if you understand how multifamily properties are calculated as far as the value is based on net operating income. They use the income approach to valuation. So if you look at what REITs do, real estate investment trusts, they focus on the front end, which is, find a property they can buy, and they will aggressively increase the rental rates, okay? But you never hear them talk about cost reduction, expense reduction, this is just as important. Remember, it's the net income that matters. It's not the gross revenue, it's the net income. So let's say the rents have been going up and we're probably heading into a recession. I'm not trying to depress you. It's just a natural part of business. The big economy goes up and down and we're sitting poised to head down. So the reality is rental rates have gone up quite a bit, and maybe they're not going to be going up too much more in the next few years. And you want to sell, do this, reduce your expenses, elevator costs, termite, pest, snow, everything everything you have to do to your buildings, you can reduce those costs to make it look more profitable on paper. I mean, it will be more profitable in your bank account too. But that's why this is so serious, and it's scalable. So Tina, if you could talk a little bit about that. I mean, it's one thing to do this for a 10-unit building, but for a 100-unit building, I mean, this could be substantial. What's can you think of an example where you actually have dollars or like what it was before and then the before and after picture for the income expense? Anything that you can legally share with us, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the tricky part. But no. So we had one building that was a $3 million budget 10 years ago, and now it is a $3.3 million budget, meaning their expenses went from 3 to 3.3. That's 10% in 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a very definitive number, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if we were not there, that would have probably been 4 million by now.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I have one very good example too. I'm just thinking here. So when it comes to insurance, I have two examples. So one of them, when we started, the insurance was approximately $90,000, so close to $90,000. Insurance typically increases by 2.5% a year. This year, insurance increased by 8%. That building's insurance is still less than $90,000.
Wow.
Yes. And I believe that's around 8 or 10 years. We have another building where we were able to reduce their insurance by 40%. The second year, our insurance broker renegotiated, or basically what he does is that he sells the building better to the underwriter. Okay. The second year, he did exactly the same thing, a second year, and he brought it down. So the total insurance reduction in that one building was 62%.
Oh boy.
Yes. And then what happens when insurance, or with any cost actually, so that is savings that will go on forever, because now you have reduced the base. So if we reduce the base from 100,000 a year to 50,000 a year, 50,000 in savings, but over the next 10 years, the 100,000 would increase by 2.5% every year.
Right.
And on average. And the 50,000 will also increase by 2.5%. So in reality, over the next 10 years, it's $500,000 in savings.
Yeah.
Right.
Amazing.
And
yep.
You're an analyst, yes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the whole compounding effect is not only on your investments, it's also on the costs.
Yeah, I was just thinking that too. If you have to realize this is not a linear thing. It's not like just 1 year and you're done. This does have absolutely a compounding effect. And if you think about it, the values of all of our properties have been going up dramatically the last several years. Doing something like this to keep cost in check allows you to reap more of the rewards from your increase in your equities and your increase in your rental rates. Remember, when you keep your costs relatively fixed like this, guys, that means when you raise your rental rates, that's top end. You get to keep all of that, or obviously the vast majority, taxes aside. That's a huge benefit. So this is, I used to have this saying. Actually, I still have this saying: is you have to play offense and defense. So what I notice a lot of investors doing when they first start out is they aggressively build their portfolio. They're going on offense. They're scoring points, okay? And expenses are like an afterthought. Not really thinking about it. And yet, sometimes, unbeknownst to you, your insurance rates could go up and you wouldn't even know it. Just like property taxes can go up. Rates on your utilities. You should have, the toilets, for example, that are using, now they're going from 1.6 gallons to 0.9 gallons. They're jet flushes, things like that. It all adds up, So you guys.
And on the point of the toilets, so the 0.9 gallons, they have they're flapperless, so you don't actually have to have a flapper. And my understanding is that flappers and leaks account for 6% of water waste in the United States.
Oh, I'm sure of it. Yep.
Yeah.
And then even, how about the shower heads? There's some really, just in the last generation, the designs and shower heads are far more advanced than when I first got started investing. It's it's not like you're losing power, or what we call thrust. When the water comes out, it's still powerful, So.
And I completely agree with you, but there are so many misconceptions. I wonder if that's like an educational thing, that people think that the lights are awful, right?
Oh.
They think that we can't have motion sensors in the corridor, in the hallways, on the floors, because what if the power goes out? Well, if the power goes out, there's an emergency. Now we're going to install an emergency light on the corner. So you're still going to have lights, right? Or when it comes to water, they said, a 0.9 gallon of won't flush. It won't be, but that's not the case. They have developed all of these different, and the same with shower heads. I believe that a shower head approximately a new one, efficient one, reduces water use by, it uses 1/3 of the water that an old one. And in New York City, we have a lot of water tanks, toilet tanks. The tank themselves, they're 5 gallons.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Can you imagine bringing that from 5 to 0.9?
I know. Yeah. I remember when there were actually 6 gallons as a kid, and then it went to 5 gallons and then 3 gallons. And the technology's really improved. It's funny we're talking about this subject because I'm sure people are giggling, but if you think about it, if you don't take it seriously, you're literally flushing money down the toilet.
It's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, so it's kind of it's a funny thing, but it's very serious at the same time. Okay, I know we're getting close on time here, but any final thoughts or words of wisdom you can share with people? How we can go to the website, engage with you there, but what can we expect? Is there a contract, or what's the actual process to engage you?
Yeah, so the process is very simple. We have a 1-page agreement. We didn't want it to be too legalized because we don't want boards to have to. They're more than welcome to hire their attorney, to run it by their attorney, but we didn't want them to have to hire an attorney in order to hire us. We'll send a contract. As soon as that's signed, we need financial statements, a monthly financial statement with all the different invoices. We go through it. We will then make a few recommendations. We know that boards and property owners, multifamily property owners are so busy taking care of emergencies. So we don't want to overwhelm them. So we'll send them 2 to 4 different recommendations. And that's basically the low-hanging fruit where we think that we're going to find the most savings. Okay. And then they approve those. They approve some of them. They don't approve some of them. And then whatever they approve, that is where we start working, and we start bringing in vendors and solutions to address those issues. And then some take a long time, like the heating plant normally takes a long time to dress because, it's complicated. Whereas if they have 20 phone lines right now and they only have 4 that are active, we can make a phone call to Verizon and cancel it in 1 day. And they'll see savings right away. So it depends on the contract and the particular situation.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I do have one more question. When it comes to investing in New York City, people are always, I've had people mention, well, boy, how can you really afford to do that? It's so expensive there. And I'm like, well, everything's relative. Your cost of purchasing may be higher, but your rents are higher. But you're and your husband, what are your thoughts on the New York City market now as far as investing? Is a comeback from the pandemic? Is a good time to buy, or what are you seeing and feeling from your clients up there?
Yeah, we believe that it is back. And I mean, we follow the real estate industry, and we hear what real estate brokers and appraisers like Jonathan Miller say, and they say that it's back. There's very low inventory. Is it a good time? It's like anything else. I mean, is it a good time to buy Apple? Maybe yes, maybe no.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
No,
I mean, if it's something you want to invest in, this might be a good time.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I graduated college, it was 1985, and my first job was with, back then it was called Sperry Corporation. Now it's Unisys. And one of the senior guys there, he knew I was excited about investing. He took me under his wing. He said, look, I'm going to just give you some advice now. He said, always accumulate real estate. It almost never goes down in value. Now, the last recession was an exception. Obviously, it was led by real estate. But in most of the recessions, real estate property values really don't take the same kind of a beating that stocks do, and it's a tangible asset, and it generates revenue. So it's like having a great blue chip stock that throws off great dividends. And as long as you're patient and you start now, over time, you're going to generate substantial wealth and income, So, Tina, listen, thank you very, very much for doing this. I know it's such a unique subject, and I was so excited to have you on because we never get into something like this. And it just goes to show you've got to play offense and defense. You've got to keep your costs in check, and hiring somebody like you that has the expertise in that, you could, like you said, you can still go golfing and know that Tina's got your best interest in mind, reducing your expenses. So, hey, real quick, what's the website one more time?
Website is www.thefolsongroup.com.
With an N, Folson with an N.
With an N.
There you go. And it'll be in the show notes. Anybody listening, just look in the show notes and you'll see this in there too. And for everybody listening, and you too, Tina, God bless you and your families. And we'll see you next week on the next Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. Take care.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.